a lot of the bears will point to a couple of these indicators that Bitcoin is testing. So I wanted to address it. Number one is Bitcoin is now touching that EMA 200, which traditionally speaking has been a very, very, very good support. Now, of course, we did break through that recently, okay? Last year when we had the FTX collapse and everything else collapse, and then we went below, and we stayed there for quite a long time until we broke out earlier this year, and we stayed above, right? So now we're back at that point right around, this 25.7, 25.8-ish, right? So the naysayers will say something like this being very bad, that we can't break out of this line and we keep retesting it. And when you retest something long enough, eventually it breaks through, right? So this is one of those indicators that Bitcoin is retesting. Another one is this on the Fibonacci level, 38.2% level is generally speaking a good support, okay? Especially coming off from bottom. You look at previous cycles, Bitcoin broke above, then retested it, and then guess what happened? It went upwards, right? So some of these indicators that the naysayers will point out to, right? Actually, if you think about it and you expand out, realize that these are actually pretty positive indicators. A lot of times you see Bitcoin retest these even after breaking out significantly. So this does not necessarily mean that these are bad things, okay? Although some other channels, I won't name names, they are super, super, super bearish, and it just doesn't quite make sense. It doesn't add up when you add up all the facts and you look at the fundamentals of Bitcoin. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Bernstein, they're like 700 million in asset. Well, they believe that the rally is going to come soon, and this is based on fundamentals. I've been talking about fundamentals. Seems like no one really concentrates on the fundamentals, but I'm glad I'm not the only one that have noticed that the fundamentals of Bitcoin has been extremely strong. In fact, arguably the strongest it's ever been. Okay? What constitutes us fundamentals? Well, things I've been talking about. Addresses, number of addresses, number of holders. Okay? Also the hash rate. I mean, anything that's measurable, okay? Network activity. I mean, anything that's measurable is pretty much at a high or all-time high or getting up there. Reserves going down to an exchange. These all count. And Bernstein believes that, yeah, this will definitely drive this next rally upwards. And also, something else I saw that is actually quite interesting. It's called the quadruple witching event. This happens 4 times in a year where the fund managers basically rebalance their portfolio. Okay? It's a weird thing, but throughout the month, right? These big hedge funds guys who hold billions or trillions of assets, they reevaluate and they determine what to put in their portfolio. Now, here's the thing. The last time this happened was back in June. Bitcoin saw a big run up. Okay, so does that mean a lot of fund managers right now looking at the environment, especially seeing how down Bitcoin is from its, temporary top of 31,000, right? They might be licking their chops right now thinking this is a great time to be buying in before next year. And I've mentioned so many positive things about next year, right? Paul Krugman, okay, he was asked about Bitcoin 12 years ago when it was about $7, okay? And he dismissed it and said that there's no way Bitcoin, there's no way it can sustain as a currency. There's no way it's going to go bye-bye. It's going to go bankrupt, right? And he dismissed it. Well, after dismissing it, it went up 366,000%, okay? And this is at our current level, about 26,000. If we measure it to like 70,000, I mean, it's like 1,000,000%, okay? So this is the reason why. If you're a Bitcoiner, if you're an investor, you want to hold for long haul, right? You don't want to hold just for short-term gains. And because you're going to be missing out. So many people get scared out, get fudded out for whatever reason, okay? And they're like, enough is enough. I need to get out. I'm not going to be in it, right? But more often than not, those people get hurt because when things come back, they come back really, really fast. And some of the fuddish things that people thought was going to happen didn't happen, right? And then they end up losing out completely, or they have to buy in at a higher price, which will cost them a lot of money, right? So despite everything that's going on, right, and it does seem a little fuddish right now, I am still as bullish as ever. Today is also an anniversary, the 2-year anniversary of El Salvador adopting and embracing Bitcoin and making it legal tender. And has it done wonders for El Salvador? Well, one can argue that. Since then, tourism is up. Their volcano mining and their bonds is live. The country has bought over 2,500 Bitcoins. They still make headline news. So, yeah, I would say that's a win, right? Obviously, not every citizen of El Salvador and every business is fully embracing Bitcoin, but it's definitely a good start. And it's a good, I guess, model for other countries to mimic, because like right now you have a lot of other countries in South America, like Argentina, for example, that are really struggling. They're really struggling. The citizens are struggling. The banks are struggling, right? So they need a better system. And that's why they're looking at Bitcoin. They're looking at El Salvador. Obviously, Argentina is a much bigger country, but they're looking at a lot of the same things. How do we incorporate Bitcoin and utilize it, right, for our benefit? So, pretty good. Pretty good. And as time goes on, we're going to get more and more and more countries embracing Bitcoin. Grayscale is urging the SEC to approve their ETF request. This could be right around the corner. Grayscale already won their lawsuit against the SEC. So what other reason does the SEC have to keep denying them, right? So we may see the very first Bitcoin spot ETF right around the corner, maybe even end of this month, maybe next month, maybe end of the year, right? The SEC can only push it back so far, okay? So this is also monumental. We've never, ever had a spot Bitcoin ETF before in the United States, ever, okay? And you know what happened? Let's say, look at this. I know my camera's kind of cutting it off here, but look at what happened with gold. Look at what happened in gold when its spot ETF got approved back in 2004, 2005. That's what happened shortly afterwards, right? So if we get the very first Bitcoin spot ETF, and we know there's like 7 applicants, okay? So are we going to see something similar? It's very, very likely. Why? Because now you have trillions on the sideline from these big institutions that could be entering into the space and getting Bitcoin or something equivalent that mimics Bitcoin's price movement, right? But the difference between spot ETF and futures ETF is the fact that these fund companies actually have to buy and hold Bitcoin. So the trillions that are coming in is going to cause massive amount of buying, right? So there's that too. You can't ignore this. I've been talking about it for a while, but it's just a matter of time before we get one. The biggest reason I believe why Bitcoin is not moving, why tech isn't moving, why so many companies have fallen since July, right, is simply because the dollar is so strong. And it's funny to say that as a country, as citizens of the country with the strongest currency out there, we should all be cheering for this, right? We should all be thinking, yeah, this is awesome. This is why we live in the U.S., because we have the strongest dollar, we have the strongest currency out there. But when it comes to investing, it actually really sucks. When the dollar gains strength, everything else goes down. There's just no doubt about it. It's proven, right? So until this falls down, we may see our current levels stick. But the good news is people do think that the DXY is going to fall, right? We have hit this ceiling, this resistance point, and we may be falling from 105 once again. And if we do, guess what? Bitcoin will go in the reverse direction, which is upwards and back towards 30,000 and beyond, right? So let's see. Let's see what happens. Here's another interesting one. This is from TechDev. TechDev likes to correlate Bitcoin with the DXY, with the Chinese 10-year rates. He's the only one that does this. But it's actually pretty accurate if you look at it, right? If you look at, basically what he's saying is right now we're in that phase where we should be going higher because we are in the same phase as all the previous times before, and you could see all the lines that he has drawn and these green dots, right? Basically, this is the time to be bullish. This is basically the time when everything's aligned and we are set to go higher. Not to say that this has been invalidated, because there have been times, if you look at like 2013, there's been times where it went sideways. If you go back before it, you look at 2016 also, we went kind of sideways a little bit, right? So it doesn't mean that you go straight up to the moon. But interesting enough, he's putting it all together and shows that greater days are coming, right? So it could be aligned because DXY have now hit that top of 105 and it's going to start coming down. So that also makes sense if you think about it. But you know what? My point is, yeah, it's a little scary right now, right? There's a lot of reasons why things are down, things that are holding Bitcoin and crypto down. I realize that, okay? But this is temporary.